Thinking is the greatest disease our generation has ever seen. I mean specifically overthinking. And why do I say that? Overthinking has caused more problems and led to more anxiety and stress than anything else our generation has ever seen, especially me as a millennial in my generation time. Now, we're going to go over the different problems that arise from thinking, the different causes from all of those problems, as well as the potential solutions that you and I can both take into our everyday lives to basically do away with unnecessary and overthinking as a whole. So, what are the problems that arise from thinking? You find people that are paralyzed by overanalysis or paralysis by analysis. And these kinds of people think and think and think and try to figure out all the hypothetical situations that may arise if they did some sort of action or said something specifically to somebody else. And it usually ends up in results in them never doing anything. They never take a step forward. And then you find people in a very, very downward spiral of beating themselves up and feeling terrible about themselves. And then thinking naturally will lead to anxiety and stress and depression and things that you see on a fairly regular basis, all due to people not having control over their mind and not having the mind as a tool rather than something that's a master. See, the problem is obviously coming from a cause of some sort. And in our generation, technology has exploded beyond anything else we've ever seen in the history of mankind. Technology is huge. And so we've got cell phones, we've got iPads, we've got computers, we've got cameras, and all of these things keep our mind going at 1,000,000 miles a second. And all of these things contribute to overthinking because we're never able to sit down, relax, take a deep breath, and calm our minds so that we can eventually figure out how we can use our thoughts to the best advantage. Now, of course, on top of that, there's social pressures, and that's influenced by Instagram and social media, and all of these things in conglomeration develop an environment where we're constantly thinking, we're constantly trying to figure out what the future and past is going to be like, and that causes problems big time in our mental health. Now, you might have heard of Eckhart Tolle. Eckhart Tolle is a spiritual leader, kind of like a guru of some sort, and he has spent his entire life and dedicated his entire life to figuring out how to make people have a better experience in life by being more mindful. Now, what he says that's very, very interesting is the power for creating a better future is contained in the present moment. You create a good future by creating a good present. So if we focus on creating the good present moment, we're able to push away all the worries we have of the future and also of the past, and we're able to focus on the now, which will create a better future, and we can forget about the things that happened in the past. Furthermore, a great book by Shawn Achor, The Happiness Advantage. Shawn Achor is a man that studies basically happiness. He spent decades on studying the science of happiness. And one of the main principles he said and advice he gives to people in his book, The Happiness Advantage, is that every day, take 2 minutes to stop whatever you're doing and concentrate on breathing. Even a short, mindful break can result in a calmer, happier you. Now, whether you call it meditation, whether you call it focus, whatever you want to call it, doing that will essentially break down some of the bad habits of thinking and build up your muscles over time of thinking using it as a tool rather than using it or having it use you overall in your general everyday to-day activities. Now, one of the things that's super, super fascinating, especially when it comes to emotions, is something that Craig Manning, a sports psychologist, mentions in his book called The Fearless Mind. Craig Manning actually teaches at BYU sports psychology. And one of the things he says about emotions is we need emotions. A life without emotions is hard to contemplate. Now, when our emotions are channeled in constructive ways, we become formidable at achieving whatever skill sets we focus on. And controlling our emotions perpetuates thinking and lessens worrying. See, the problem is not that we're thinking, but we're overthinking. We're worrying. We're dwelling on things that we don't need to be dwelling on. And what he suggests is take a second and learn how to master your mind, and then eventually you'll be able to channel all your thoughts, all your emotions into something that's going to be far greater than what you can do right now. And finally, one of the greatest apps of all time is an app called Headspace. And the creators of Headspace created this app that is a guided meditation so that you and I can sit down and eventually build up the muscles so that we can have the mindset and the attitude of mindfulness in our everyday activities. So my challenge to you as the audience is take a second and do a mental inventory of what your day is like. Could you use some extra time to sit down and strengthen your mind and to learn how to be more mindful so that the disease of mindfulness or overthinking then turns into something that is your greatest tool, so that your brain is not the master and you're not the servant, but rather you are the master and the brain is your servant.